Picture this. You wake up tomorrow morning, and instead of immediately reaching for your phone to check notifications, emails, and the endless stream of chaos that awaits you, you take a deep breath and feel genuinely at peace. Not because your problems have disappeared, not because the world has suddenly become less complicated, but because you've discovered something the ancient Stoics knew over 2,000 years ago: that your inner peace doesn't depend on external circumstances. It depends on how you choose to respond to them. In our hyper-connected world, where the average person checks their phone 96 times a day and receives over 120 notifications daily, the idea of inner peace might seem like a luxury we can't afford. We're constantly bombarded with information, expectations, and pressures that would have been unimaginable to our ancestors. Yet paradoxically, the wisdom we need to navigate this chaos was already discovered by philosophers who lived in times that were arguably just as turbulent as ours. Marcus Aurelius wrote his most profound thoughts while leading military campaigns on the Roman frontier. Epictetus developed his philosophy while enslaved. Seneca counseled emperors while navigating the treacherous politics of ancient Rome. These weren't men living in ivory towers. They were dealing with real-world pressures, just like us. If you're finding value in this exploration of ancient wisdom for modern peace, consider subscribing so you don't miss more reflections like this. There's something powerful about building a community of people committed to inner growth and philosophical living. The Stoics understood something that modern psychology is only now beginning to validate through research: that our emotional well-being isn't determined by what happens to us, but by how we interpret and respond to what happens to us. This isn't just philosophical speculation. It's backed by decades of cognitive behavioral therapy research, which shows that changing our thought patterns can literally rewire our brains and improve our mental health. The Stoics were essentially the world's first cognitive behavioral therapists, teaching practical techniques for mental resilience that remain remarkably relevant today. Marcus Aurelius, writing in his personal journal that would later become the Meditations, reminds us that you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Think about the last time you felt truly stressed or anxious. Was it because of the actual event that was happening? Or was it because of the story you were telling yourself about that event? When you're stuck in traffic, the traffic itself isn't causing your stress. It's your thoughts about being late, about how this always happens to you, about how unfair it is. The traffic simply is. Your peace of mind depends on recognizing this distinction. This principle becomes even more powerful when we consider how much of our mental energy we waste on things completely outside our control. Epictetus, who knew something about powerlessness having spent years as a slave, taught that we should focus only on what is up to us and let go of everything else. He said, "Some things are within our power, while others are not." This sounds simple, but it's revolutionary when you really internalize it. You can't control whether you get the promotion, but you can control how much effort you put into your work. You can't control whether someone likes you, but you can control how authentically you show up in relationships. You can't control the weather, the economy, or other people's opinions, but you can control your responses to all of these things. Research in positive psychology supports this ancient wisdom. Studies show that people who focus on what they can control report higher levels of life satisfaction and lower levels of anxiety and depression. Dr. Martin Seligman's work on learned optimism demonstrates that we can literally train ourselves to think more constructively about challenges and setbacks. The Stoics were teaching this same principle 2 millennia ago, but they went even deeper, suggesting that obstacles aren't just things to overcome. They're opportunities for growth and character development. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This isn't just motivational rhetoric. It's a fundamental reframing of how we approach difficulties. Every challenge you face is simultaneously an opportunity to practice patience, resilience, creativity, or courage. The difficult conversation with your boss becomes a chance to practice clear communication. The financial setback becomes an opportunity to develop resourcefulness and gratitude for what you have. The health scare becomes a reminder to appreciate your body and prioritize what truly matters. But let's be honest, this kind of thinking doesn't come naturally to most of us. Our brains are wired for survival, not serenity. We're constantly scanning for threats, comparing ourselves to others, and worrying about future scenarios that may never happen. The average person has between 12,000 and 60,000 thoughts per day, and research suggests that 80% of those thoughts are negative and 95% are repetitive. We're essentially running the same worried, anxious, or frustrated thoughts on repeat, creating our own mental prison. This is where the Stoic practice of mindfulness, though they didn't call it that, becomes essential. Seneca advised, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." He understood that each moment offers us a fresh start, a chance to choose our response rather than simply react from habit or emotion. When you notice yourself spiraling into anxiety about the future or ruminating about the past, you can pause and ask yourself, what is actually happening right now, in this moment? Usually right now, you're safe. Right now you're breathing. Right now you have choices. The practice of present moment awareness isn't about positive thinking or pretending everything is fine when it's not. It's about seeing reality clearly, without the distortion of our fears, assumptions, and mental stories. When you're present, you can respond to what's actually happening rather than reacting to what you imagine might happen or what you think should be happening. This clarity is the foundation of inner peace. Consider how much mental energy you spend fighting reality. You get caught in the rain and spend the next hour complaining about the weather. Your flight gets delayed and you stew in frustration about the airline's incompetence. Your partner doesn't respond to your text immediately, and you create elaborate stories about what this means about your relationship. The Stoics would say, you're making yourself miserable by demanding that reality be different than it is. Epictetus taught, don't demand that things happen as you wish. Instead, wish that they happen as they do happen, and you will go on well. This doesn't mean becoming passive or accepting injustice. It means distinguishing between what you can change and what you can't, and directing your energy accordingly. If your flight is delayed, you can't change that, but you can choose to use the time productively, practice patience, or simply rest. If there's injustice in your workplace, you can't control your boss's behavior, but you can control whether you speak up, document issues, or look for other opportunities. The key is responding from a place of clarity and choice, rather than emotional reactivity. The Stoics also understood something that modern neuroscience confirms, that our thoughts and emotions are temporary phenomena, not permanent aspects of who we are. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself how much trouble he avoids who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does, but only to what he does himself. When you're caught up in anger, anxiety, or sadness, it feels like these emotions define you, but they're actually just weather patterns in the sky of your consciousness. They arise, they peak, and they pass away, just like clouds. This perspective is incredibly liberating. You don't have to identify with every thought or emotion that arises. You can observe them with curiosity rather than getting swept away by them. When anxiety shows up, instead of thinking, I am anxious, you can notice anxiety is present. This subtle shift creates space between you and your emotional experience, allowing you to respond more skillfully rather than being hijacked by temporary mental states. Research in mindfulness and meditation supports this ancient insight. Studies using brain imaging technology show that regular meditation practice actually changes the structure of the brain, strengthening areas associated with attention and emotional regulation, while reducing activity in the amygdala, the brain's alarm system. People who meditate regularly report feeling less reactive to stress and more capable of maintaining equanimity in challenging situations. The Stoics were essentially teaching a form of cognitive meditation, training the mind to observe thoughts and emotions without being controlled by them. But inner peace isn't just about managing difficult emotions, it's also about cultivating positive states of mind that contribute to genuine well-being. The Stoics emphasized virtues like wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance not because they were moral obligations, but because living virtuously leads to eudaimonia, often translated as happiness, but better understood as human flourishing or living well. When you act with integrity, treat others with kindness, face challenges with courage, and practice moderation, you're not just being a good person, you're creating the conditions for deep satisfaction and peace. Seneca wrote, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end," but he also said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." How much of your life do you spend in a state of genuine contentment versus anxiety, frustration, or distraction? The Stoics would argue that most of our suffering is self-created through our attachments, expectations, and resistance to what is. When you can let go of needing things to be different than they are, when you can find meaning in the process rather than just the outcomes, when you can appreciate what you have rather than constantly focusing on what you lack, you discover a peace that doesn't depend on external circumstances. This kind of inner peace isn't a luxury, it's a necessity for thriving in our complex world. When you're centered and calm, you make better decisions. When you're not reactive, you communicate more effectively. When you're present, you're more creative and productive. When you're at peace with yourself, you're more capable of contributing positively to others' lives. Inner peace isn't selfish. It's one of the greatest gifts you can give to the world. The Stoics also recognized that developing inner peace is a practice, not a destination. Marcus Aurelius, despite being one of the most powerful men in the world, still struggled with anger, frustration, and doubt. His meditations are essentially his personal reminders to himself to stay centered and philosophical. He wrote, "Be like the rocky headland on which the waves constantly break. It stands firm, and round it the seething waters are laid to rest." This image captures the essence of Stoic inner peace, not the absence of challenges, but the ability to remain stable and grounded, regardless of external turbulence. In our age of information overload, this stability becomes even more crucial. We're exposed to more information in a single day than our ancestors encountered in months or years. We know about tragedies happening on the other side of the world within minutes of their occurrence. We're constantly comparing our lives to curated versions of others' lives on social media. We're bombarded with advertisements designed to make us feel inadequate, so we'll buy products to fill the void. Without a strong foundation of inner peace, we become like leaves blown around by every wind of circumstance, opinion, or emotion. The practice of Stoic mindfulness offers an antidote to this chaos. When you start each day by reminding yourself of what you can and cannot control, you're less likely to waste energy on things outside your influence. When you practice seeing obstacles as opportunities for growth, you become more resilient and adaptable. When you cultivate gratitude for what you have rather than focusing on what you lack, you discover that you already possess much of what you need for contentment. Epictetus, who understood powerlessness intimately, taught that true freedom comes not from external circumstances, but from internal mastery. He said, "No one can hurt you without your permission." This doesn't mean that bad things won't happen to you, or that you won't experience pain. It means that your essential well-being, your inner peace, doesn't have to be destroyed by external events. You can experience grief without being consumed by it. You can face uncertainty without being paralyzed by anxiety. You can encounter criticism without having your self-worth shattered. This kind of resilience isn't built overnight. It requires consistent practice, like physical fitness or learning a musical instrument. The Stoics recommended daily reflection, examining your thoughts and actions to see where you might have reacted from emotion rather than wisdom, where you might have focused on things outside your control, where you might have missed opportunities to practice virtue. This isn't self-criticism, it's self-awareness, the foundation of growth and change. Modern research on habit formation shows that it takes an average of 66 days to establish a new behavior, but the neural pathways associated with new ways of thinking can begin forming much more quickly. Every time you choose to respond rather than react, every time you focus on what you can control rather than what you can't, every time you practice gratitude rather than complaint, you're literally rewiring your brain for greater peace and resilience. The beauty of Stoic philosophy is that it's intensely practical. These aren't abstract concepts meant for academic discussion. They're tools for daily living. When you're stuck in traffic, you can practice patience and use the time for reflection or listening to something educational. When someone criticizes you, you can ask yourself whether there's truth in their words that might help you grow, or simply let go of their opinion if it's not constructive. When you face a setback, you can look for the lesson or opportunity hidden within the challenge. As we near the end of this exploration, if these ideas resonate with you and you'd like to continue this journey of philosophical living, subscribing would mean a lot. It helps us build a community of people committed to finding wisdom and peace in an often chaotic world. The Stoics understood that inner peace isn't a feeling, it's a way of being. It's not about being happy all the time or never experiencing negative emotions. It's about maintaining your center regardless of what's happening around you. It's about responding to life from a place of wisdom rather than reactivity. It's about finding meaning and purpose even in difficult circumstances. It's about recognizing that your thoughts, emotions, and reactions are choices, and that with practice, you can choose more skillfully. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Confine yourself to the present, and in our age of constant distraction, this advice is more relevant than ever. The present moment is the only place where you have any real power. The past is gone and can't be changed. The future hasn't happened yet and may unfold very differently than you expect. But right now, in this moment, you can choose your thoughts, your attitude, your actions. You can choose peace over anxiety, gratitude over complaint, courage over fear, wisdom over reactivity." This doesn't mean that developing inner peace is easy. Our minds are conditioned by years of habitual thinking patterns, cultural conditioning, and evolutionary programming that prioritizes survival over serenity. But the Stoics proved that it's possible to transcend these limitations through philosophy, practice, and persistence. They showed that ordinary human beings can develop extraordinary equanimity, wisdom, and peace, not by changing their external circumstances, but by changing their relationship to those circumstances. The invitation is simple but profound: to begin seeing your life as a practice ground for developing inner peace, wisdom, and virtue. Every interaction becomes an opportunity to practice patience or kindness. Every challenge becomes a chance to develop resilience and creativity. Every moment becomes a choice point where you can respond from your highest self rather than your most reactive impulses. In a world that often feels chaotic and overwhelming, your inner peace becomes not just a personal refuge, but a gift to everyone around you. When you're centered and calm, you create space for others to find their own peace. When you respond with wisdom rather than reactivity, you model a different way of being. When you face challenges with courage and grace, you inspire others to do the same. The ancient Stoics discovered something timeless, that true security, happiness, and peace don't come from controlling external circumstances, but from mastering our internal responses to those circumstances. In our modern world of constant change and uncertainty, this wisdom isn't just helpful, it's essential. Your inner peace is both your sanctuary and your strength, your refuge and your power. It's always available, always accessible, always just one conscious choice away. The journey toward inner peace is not a destination, but a way of traveling. Each day offers new opportunities to practice, to grow, to choose wisdom over worry, presence over distraction, acceptance over resistance. The Stoics would remind us that this moment, right now, is perfect for beginning. Not because your circumstances are perfect, but because your capacity for peace, wisdom, and virtue is always perfect, always complete, always ready to be expressed. Your inner peace is not something you need to find or create. It's something you need to remember and return to again and again until it becomes as natural as breathing.